Some guy named Andy Cortez recently made a hilarious and bizarre rant about people who criticize DEI policies, in particular YouTubers and gamers. We're going to take a look at that, but first, who even is this guy? Well, when I looked him up, I found a Rooster Teeth fandom article that says Andy Cortez was formerly an employee of Rooster Teeth who currently works at Kinda Funny. He was a level designer and 3D artist for Rooster Teeth games, having worked on Ruby Grim Eclipse. He left Rooster Teeth in March 2017 to work at Kinda Funny. Yeah, the thing is, I have no idea what their business Kinda Funny is either, so let's check that out next. They've also got an article over on roosterteeth.fandom.com, which gives a variety of information, including that Kinda Funny has 2 YouTube channels. So going over to YouTube and typing in Kinda Funny, I'm met with Kinda Funny Games. Taking a look at some of their recent videos, we can see The Penguin, Batman in Review, Agatha All Along, MCU in Review, and Please Vote for Kamala Harris, Kinda Funny Podcast. So there you go, there's some context. Now let's check out this Andy Cortez person's rant.
You need DEI because you wouldn't have jobs if DEI didn't exist to complain about. You wouldn't be making money on YouTube if DEI didn't exist. So you're really the ones that need it.
Okay, so let's pause there. I don't know if he's talking about any specific person, but for a lot of us who criticize DEI policies, that's really not the case. For example, it's really fitting that this guy used to be associated with Rooster Teeth because I've made dozens of videos talking about corruption that's occurred at Rooster Teeth, their bad business practices, how they've ruined Ruby, things like that, etc., etc. I also criticize corruption over at companies like Funimation and Crunchyroll, and it just so happens now that a lot of corporations in the anime and gaming space have adopted DEI policies that are harming the products that they work on and shovel onto us. In which I now find it fitting to talk about those policies and criticize them, just like I've always criticized corporations. On top of that, I've also just made a ton of videos on just like fandom stuff going on too, so like the fact of the matter is if all these corporations wiped out their DEI policies tomorrow, my channel would be fine, dude, be chilling. There's plenty of stuff to talk about.
Unless your game has only white dudes, if you have a woman, she better be fun hot.
Yeah.
You know, get an ugly woman out of my game. That lady better be super smoking hot.
Yep.
That's the way they think, right?
So this is a part of a larger issue that he's really talking about with no nuance here. For example, baked into this issue is situations where we've seen characters like E from Stellar Blade, which then end up getting criticized from these gaming journalists and like armchair activist types of people, saying it's objectifying women and it's problematic, etc., etc. To which understandably gamers will then push back against those claims, including, by the way, plenty of women pushing back against those claims. Then there's also an issue of double standards because oftentimes you see someone who says like a female character is too sexualized, and then you take a look at their profile or whatever, and they're like heavily sexualizing male characters. For some reason, that's a pretty frequent occurrence. There's also plenty of other issues in this topic as well. For example, recently with Dragon Age the Veilguard, where character customization options were extremely limited for female characters. Absurdly minimal sliders. To which, once again, many women also criticized the lack of options there, lack of customization. So no, it's not just white dudes or dudes, whatever the heck this guy was saying, who criticized this stuff. Doesn't really seem to understand what he's talking about. Although, to be fair to him, I haven't seen the full clip. Maybe he does bring this up too, but from what I just saw, yeah, not really accurate.
Back in the day, game development studios were primarily white dudes. And they didn't really think about diversity. And that's one thing, right? It was a lot rarer to find non-white dudes in game development. And as that changes, and as college and learning and all that stuff kind of becomes more ubiquitous and more available for everybody, more and more people from different walks of life want to get into game development.
Yeah.
And then what happens then?
They're making the characters the people that they know, the things that they see.
And it's
just like the white people do.
Just like you put yourself into stories, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about that with Dragon Age Veilguard, how the game director, Corinne Bush, she's a trans woman. And sometimes in games, you just put in your own sort of experiences. And that's so natural to happen.
That's what art is.
It's nothing that's supposed to offend anybody. It's supposed to be, hey, walk around and look around. The world has everybody. Your game's having it shouldn't stop you from playing it.
Yeah, so once again, this guy seems to really not understand the topic that he's speaking with so much conviction on. Does he really not understand how there are factually things like DI policies at a lot of these major gaming corporations nowadays in the AAA space, and how they will intentionally and disingenuously put these characters in there? It's not just because like, oh, there's a variety of diverse people working on these games. It's just occurring naturally. No, as a matter of fact, it's very not natural. It's very much corporate jargon, which is the issue that most of us take. I actually talked about this yesterday too. Most gamers who talk about this stuff don't have an issue with a vast array of characters in their media. The issue is, as I just said, corporations disingenuously putting these characters in there, and then oftentimes they write the diverse characters extremely poorly too, so the representation or whatever ends up not even being good. And I'm glad he also brought up Veilguard, because that's a perfect example, one that I have been using a lot lately, understandably, because the game just came out. But the LGBT representation in that game has been awful. awful. Look at Tosh, man. That character is written so poorly. It comes off so fake, so forced, so disingenuous, so clunky. And then they also made Tosh a complete hypocrite, who so many people don't even like. Maybe even the majority of people who play that game don't like Tosh. I see posts all the time about how people dislike that character and wish they could remove Tosh from their party, and or how the character should be named trash, stuff like that. It's all over the place. Let me know what you guys think about Andy Cortez's rant. If you agree or disagree with him, let me know in the comments. And now, moving on. Speaking of Veilguard, lots of people in the gaming community are criticizing IGN for this tweet that they made earlier today that reads, Dragon Age the Veilguard is awkwardly in conflict with itself, torn into pieces that reflect a sequel to a decade-old RPG and a fresh beginning with no ties to what came before. An example of the criticism they're getting for this is Pirate Nation, who tweets, IGN has changed its mind about Veilguard. After giving a 9 out of 10 to trick people to buy the game, now after 2 weeks the game is a failure, not even 1 million units sold, players are nervous and ask for a return of the game, IGN is trying to get away with it and post a review that should have been from the beginning. And yeah, in their Veilguard review, they gave it a 9 out of 10. In the responses to Pirate Nation's tweet, though, someone would defend IGN, saying it's 2 different writers, and this isn't a review, it's an opinion piece. Sure, you could say that, and there might even be some merit to it. However, I don't have enough confidence in IGN to not believe that there could be an ulterior motive here. I would not be surprised at all if they initially did attempt to prop this game up, giving it a 9 out of 10. And now that the game isn't doing as well as they and other gaming journalists had hoped, despite their attempts to once again prop the game up, they're trying to circle it back a little bit at least. Now moving back to IGN's tweet, the one that Pirate Nation had responded to, we've got another response here, this one from Legacy Killer HD, who says, I get they have different writers, blah blah blah, but still funny seeing IGN give Veilguard a, quote, 9 out of 10, best game ever acclaim, unquote. And then posting this 2 weeks later, trashing all over the game, and bringing up points a lot of us have been saying. Some responses to Legacy being, IGN should use a team of 3 or 5 to every review, average out of the scores, have real criteria for why the score is what it is, like EGM used to have. There was no rational excuse to give the game a 9. Even if you love it, at best, it's a 7 out of 10. And so IGN's finally catching up to what actual gamers noticed weeks ago, as well as they gave this game a 9 out of 10, yet Mario and Luigi Brothership a 5 out of 10. I've been playing Brothership like crazy, and I'd say it's more of an 8 out of 10. Conversely, here's another defense tweet. Levenza saying, society if people stop treating gaming outlets as a hive mind. Here's a tweet defending the initial IGN review that gave it a 9 out of 10. Zafina, Soulless Wife, says, how about no? IGN, please come on now. As someone who has waited a decade for this game, I'm so thrilled and overjoyed with it. There's some quality of life odd change, but this is what I wanted and shows a promising momentum for the series. It's also the only game like itself. And one more critical tweet, saying IGN gave Stellar Blade a 7 and Wukong an 8 out of spite. Then they gave Dragon Age a 7 for agenda reasons, and now that things are not looking good, they're backing off. Gaming journalists are not only dishonest, they're cowards too. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think IGN is completely innocent here, or do you think maybe they have an ulterior motive, so to speak, or what? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, as well as, of course, thoughts on the initial topic as well with that Andy Cortez person. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my coverage, and if you did, please consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate ya, and I'll see you in the next one.